Hello there. Tonight we'll step into a quiet, even forgotten corner of an ancient forest where the air hums with untold stories and the scent of damp earth rises to meet the twilight. Before you settle in comfortably, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment below with your location and what time it is where you are. You'll see just how many others are awake with you tonight. You're not alone in the dark. Now dim the lights, climb into bed, pull the blanket up, release all tension, and let go of every thought. Just focus on tonight's journey. Our story begins with Elias, a scholar whose days were spent amidst the rustle of old books and the comforting scent of ink. He lived in a small, unassuming cottage at the very edge of the whispering woods, a place where the trees stood tall and ancient, their branches interlocking to form a verdant canopy. Elias was a man of quiet habits, finding solace in the silent companionship of his texts and the occasional stroll through the less trodden paths of the forest. It was on one such stroll, during a particularly mild autumn afternoon, that his quiet world began to unfurl in an unexpected way. He had ventured deeper than usual, drawn by the dappled sunlight filtering through the dense leaves, when something peculiar caught his eye. Tied with a delicate strand of ivy to the gnarled trunk of an old oak, a solitary letter fluttered gently in the barely there breeze. Elias approached cautiously, his brow furrowed in mild curiosity. The forest was largely undisturbed, and while he sometimes encountered the occasional wanderer, a letter left so deliberately felt entirely out of place. The parchment itself was unlike any he had ever seen, not paper, but something more organic, resembling a very thin, perfectly preserved leaf, dried to a soft, pliable texture. It held a faint, almost imperceptible fragrance, like rain on dry earth after a long summer's day, mixed with something wild and sweet, perhaps honeysuckle or wild mint. He untied it carefully, his fingers brushing against the surprisingly smooth surface. The script was elegant, flowing, and unfamiliar, yet perfectly legible. As he began to read, a sense of wonder, faint at first, then growing stronger, settled over him. The words were not an ordinary message. They spoke of longing, of unspoken thoughts carried on the wind, of a heart that yearned for connection in the quiet solitude of the forest. To the kind soul who walks these ancient paths, my thoughts, like these leaves, drift on the currents of the air, seeking a shore. My heart aches with a silent song, a melody of yearning for a spirit kindred to the rustling leaves and the whispering wind. There was a profound loneliness woven into the elegant script, a delicate thread of melancholy that resonated deeply with Elias's own quiet existence. He reread the letter several times, letting the unusual phrases and the subtle rhythm of the words wash over him. It wasn't a plea, nor a demand, but rather a gentle outpouring of emotion, a beautiful, almost poetic confession from an unknown sender. Who could have written such a letter, and why leave it here in the heart of the secluded woods? Elias looked around, his gaze sweeping through the silent trees, as if to expect to see the mysterious author materialize from behind a thicket. But there was nothing, only the gentle sway of branches and the distant call of a bird. A strange sense of enchantment began to settle over him. He felt as though he had stumbled upon a secret, a delicate thread connecting him to something ethereal and deeply private. He carefully folded the leaf-like parchment, tucking it into his jacket pocket. The scent, faint but persistent, seemed to cling to his fingers, a constant reminder of his unusual discovery. He walked home slowly, his mind abuzz with questions, the quiet scholarly thoughts that usually occupied him pushed aside by this intriguing mystery. The world around him seemed to hum with new possibilities, the familiar woods suddenly imbued with a deeper, more profound sense of magic. He felt a stir of something he hadn't experienced in years, a gentle pull of curiosity, a whisper of anticipation. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long purple shadows through the trees, Elias knew he couldn't simply ignore the letter. He had to respond. The thought settled in his mind with the quiet certainty of a stone falling into still water. The next morning, Elias awoke with a renewed sense of purpose. The mysterious letter was still folded carefully in his pocket, its subtle fragrance a lingering reminder of the forest's secret. He brewed his usual strong tea, but his thoughts were not on the ancient texts that usually filled his morning hours. Instead, he found himself pulling out a fresh sheet of his own high-quality parchment, not leaf-like, but smooth and creamy, a stark contrast to the rustic beauty of the one he had received. He dipped his quill, hesitating for a moment, wondering how to address an unknown correspondent who wrote such ethereal prose. He decided on a simple, heartfelt approach. "To the gentle soul who graced my path with such beauty," he began, his handwriting neat and precise. "Your words, like a melody carried on the breeze, found their way to a heart that knows its own quiet solitude. I confess, your letter stirred within me a profound curiosity and a sense of wonder I had long forgotten. The fragrance it carries, like the rich scent of petrichor after a summer rain, is as enchanting as the words themselves. I felt, as I read, a connection to the quiet yearning you described, a resonance with the silent song of your heart." He wrote slowly, carefully choosing each word, wanting to convey sincerity and a genuine desire to understand. He spoke of his own life, a scholar's existence, filled with books and solitary pursuits, hinting at a quiet longing for something more, something beyond the pages of his ancient tomes. He didn't ask direct questions about identity, sensing that such a direct approach might break the delicate spell. Instead, he simply expressed his appreciation for the beauty of the message and his hope that their paths, though currently unseen, might continue to intertwine in this mysterious way. He described the feeling of reading the letter, the way it had brought a new light to his usually predictable days, and the sense of peace it had unexpectedly given him. He wrote about the simple beauty of the forest, the way the light fell through the trees in the morning, and the calls of the birds that often visited his window, hoping to find common ground in shared appreciation for nature. Once finished, he reread his reply, ensuring it matched the gentle, ethereal tone of the original. He folded his parchment, carefully tying it with a piece of simple twine he found in his study. The sun was high in the sky by then, casting long shadows. He decided to return to the same oak tree where he had found the first letter. The walk was familiar, yet today it felt different, imbued with a sense of quiet anticipation. Every rustle of leaves, every distant bird call seemed to hold a hidden meaning. He reached the ancient oak, its massive trunk a silent guardian of the forest. He tied his letter to the same ivy strand, ensuring it was secure, but still fluttered gently in the subtle wind, a beacon for its unknown recipient. He paused for a moment, simply standing there, listening to the quiet breathing of the woods, a silent prayer that his message would be received and understood. He left feeling a lightness he hadn't known in years, a sense of quiet excitement bubbling just beneath the surface of his usually placid demeanor. The days that followed were filled with a peculiar blend of his usual scholarly routines and a new, almost childlike anticipation. Each morning, after his tea, he would make his way to the old oak. For the first few days, his letter remained untouched. A faint pang of disappointment would prick him, but he quickly dismissed it, reminding himself that this was no ordinary correspondence, and patience was undoubtedly a virtue required in such an enigmatic exchange. He continued his work, but his mind often drifted to the mysterious writer, imagining their life, their thoughts, the reasons for leaving such a vulnerable piece of their heart in the wilderness. He wondered if they were human or something else entirely, given the unique parchment. The scent of petrichor seemed to subtly linger in his study, a memory of the unusual letter. Then, on the fourth morning, as he approached the oak, his heart gave a little leap. His letter was gone. In its place, tied with a thin, almost invisible strand of something akin to spun moonlight, was another leaf-like parchment. It was thicker than the first, and the scent, that intoxicating blend of rain-kissed earth and wild sweetness, was even more potent. He carefully untied it, his fingers trembling slightly with excitement. The words flowed effortlessly, responding to his own, acknowledging his solitude and expressing a profound understanding of the quiet life he led. Your words, it read, were indeed a gentle shore for my drifting thoughts, a solace to my silent song. Your understanding of the whispering woods echoes my own deepest feelings. The scent of petrichor, which you so keenly observed, is indeed the essence of my world, born from the earth and carried on the breath of the rain. The letter went on to paint vivid pictures of the forest from an intimate perspective, describing the secret lives of the trees, the hidden springs, and the pathways known only to the wild creatures. It spoke of listening to the earth's heartbeat and the silent conversations between ancient roots. It was clear that the writer was deeply connected to this place, understanding its nuances in a way Elias, for all his appreciation, never could. There was a warmth in the words, a growing sense of connection that transcended the physical distance. Elias felt a profound sense of peace settle over him as he read, a quiet contentment that he was no longer entirely alone in his appreciation for the world's hidden beauty. The exchange of letters quickly became the most cherished part of Elias's day. Each morning, the ritual was the same, a trek to the old oak, the quiet anticipation, and then the gentle unfolding of the leaf-like parchment, rich with the scent of petrichor and the wildness of the woods. He would read it slowly, savoring each word, absorbing the subtle nuances of his mysterious correspondent's thoughts. Her words, for he now instinctively felt the writer was female, painted such vivid pictures of the forest from an almost spiritual perspective, describing the intricate dance of light and shadow, the secret language of the rustling leaves, and the ancient wisdom held within the silent roots of the trees. She wrote of watching the moon rise through the branches, of hearing the smallest stirrings of unseen creatures, and of feeling the very heartbeat of the earth beneath her feet. His replies, in turn, became more open, more reflective. He found himself sharing aspects of his life he had rarely spoken of, even to himself. He wrote of the joy he found in discovery, the solace in solitude, and the quiet yearning for a connection that went beyond the printed page. He didn't ask direct questions about her identity or where she lived, respecting the delicate boundary she seemed to maintain. Instead, he allowed the conversation to flow organically, a gentle river of words winding through the quiet landscape of their shared thoughts. He described his studies, his favorite books, and the philosophical ponderings that often filled his evenings. He spoke of the beauty of the written word, the way stories could connect souls across time and space, little knowing how literal that would become. One evening, as twilight deepened into true night, Elias was seated at his desk by the open window, the soft glow of his lamp illuminating the pages of an old tome on ancient folklore. A gentle breeze drifted in, carrying with it the familiar, intoxicating scent of rain-kissed earth and wildflowers. He paused, inhaling deeply, a quiet smile touching his lips. The scent was stronger tonight, almost as if it had condensed in the air around him. He turned his gaze towards the dark expanse of the woods beyond his window, a silent, almost unconscious gesture of acknowledgment to his unseen friend. It was then, in the deepening gloom, that he saw it, a fleeting shadow, a reddish-brown blur darting from the edge of the tree line towards the deeper, darker parts of the forest. It moved with an almost impossible swiftness and grace, a silent ripple through the undergrowth. Elias blinked, his eyes straining in the low light. Had he imagined it? His mind, accustomed to logical analysis, immediately sought a rational explanation. Perhaps a deer or a fox caught in the beam of a distant light. But there was something about the movement, a fluid, almost ethereal quality that lingered in his mind, refusing to be easily dismissed. It was too quick, too silent, and somehow too deliberate. He leaned closer to the window, his heart giving a small, excited thrum. The scent of petrichor intensified for a moment, then seemed to dissipate slightly, as if carried away on the same gentle breeze. He remained at the window for a long time, peering into the inky blackness, but the woods revealed no more of its secrets that night. The only sounds were the familiar chirping of crickets and the soft hoot of an owl. Yet the image of that swift, reddish-brown shadow was etched into his memory. It felt significant, a subtle hint dropped by the universe, a silent acknowledgment of the connection he was forging. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had just witnessed a moonlit visitor, a fleeting glimpse of the one who wrote such beautiful letters in the wind. The next morning, as he walked to the oak, his eyes scanned the forest floor more intently than usual, searching for any sign, any lingering trace of what he had seen. There was nothing overtly remarkable, just the usual tapestry of leaves, twigs, and damp earth. But as he reached the tree, he found her letter, waiting for him. This one felt different in his hands, almost warm. As he unfolded it, the scent was more vibrant than ever before. Her words spoke of a feeling of being watched, not with fear, but with a gentle curiosity. Last night the moon cast long, knowing shadows, and I felt a gaze, kind and thoughtful, upon my silent wanderings. There is a comfort in being seen, even when unseen. His breath hitched. It was a clear confirmation. She knew he had seen something. Or rather, she knew he was the one who was watching. A profound sense of wonder, tinged with a touch of exhilarating fear, washed over him. He was not corresponding with an ordinary person. The implications were vast, stretching beyond the boundaries of his logical, scholarly world. Yet, instead of alarm, a deep sense of calm settled within him. He trusted the gentle nature of her words, the profound wisdom that permeated her letters. He felt a deep respect for whatever mystery she held. The image of the reddish-brown shadow, combined with the scent and the words, coalesced into a beautiful, compelling enigma. He was no longer just corresponding. He was stepping into a world where the boundaries between the known and the unknown were delightfully, enchantingly blurred. He knew, with a certainty that hummed through his veins, that this mysterious moonlit visitor was the key to understanding the profound depths of the whispering woods. The revelation of the moonlit visitor deepened Elias's fascination, intertwining his quiet, scholarly life with the undeniable magic of the forest. He no longer merely anticipated her letters. He eagerly awaited any subtle sign, any fleeting glimpse that might reveal more about his mysterious correspondent. The oak tree became his daily pilgrimage site, a silent sentinel marking the boundary between his world and hers. And as if in response to his heightened awareness, the forest began to offer more than just letters. One morning, as he approached the ancient oak, he noticed something nestled at its base, tucked carefully into the roots. It wasn't a letter, but a perfectly formed feather, long and iridescent, shimmering with hues of bronze and gold. It was unlike any feather he had ever seen, too grand for a common crow, too vibrant for a dove. He picked it up gently, marveling at its intricate beauty and the surprising lightness of it in his palm. It felt almost impossibly soft, like spun moonlight, and held that familiar, intoxicating scent of petrichor, faint but unmistakable. He brought it back to his study, placing it on his desk beside his inkwell, a tangible piece of her world brought into his own. The next day it was a cluster of wild berries, perfectly ripe and nestled on a bed of fresh moss. They were a deep, vibrant crimson, plump and glistening with morning dew. He recognized them as a rare variety that grew only in the deepest, most secluded parts of the woods, far from any human path. He hesitated for a moment, then, after a brief inner debate about their safety, tasted one. It burst on his tongue with a sweetness that was both earthy and ethereal, unlike any cultivated berry. He ate a few more, feeling a subtle warmth spread through him, a feeling of nourishment that went beyond simple sustenance. These were not just gifts, they were offerings, signs of care and connection from a being deeply attuned to the rhythms of nature. The gifts of the forest continued to appear, each one a silent message, a thoughtful gesture. Sometimes it was a cluster of rare, fragrant wild mushrooms, their caps velvety and their undersides intricate with delicate gills. Other times it was a smooth, unusually shaped stone, worn by water and time, perfectly balanced and cool to the touch. Once he found a delicate,
intricately woven circlet of tiny wildflowers and fresh green leaves, so artfully constructed that it looked as though it had simply sprung from the earth in that perfect form. Each item was imbued with the subtle, sweet scent of the woods, a gentle reminder of his unseen friend. Elias, in turn, began to leave small tokens of his own. He would bring delicate pieces of hand-polished amber, or a particularly smooth and interesting piece of driftwood he found by the river. He never saw if she took them, but he always hoped they brought her a fraction of the quiet joy her gifts brought him. This silent exchange, this unique form of communication that transcended words, became a deeply comforting and enriching part of his daily life. It was a tangible expression of the growing bond between them, a bridge built not of stone, but of shared appreciation and quiet affection. Through her letters, she continued to paint vivid landscapes of her world within the woods, hinting at ancient knowledge and a profound understanding of the natural world. She described the way the sap flowed through the trees, the silent language of the root systems, and the way the forest breathed with the changing seasons. Her prose was always evocative, rich with sensory detail, and infused with a gentle, almost melancholy wisdom. He learned of the secret places where the sunlight never touched, where moss grew thick and green, and where the oldest trees stood like silent sentinels, holding centuries of secrets in their gnarled branches. He began to see the forest not just as a collection of trees, but as a living, breathing entity, teeming with unseen life and ancient mysteries. He continued to write back, his letters becoming more personal, more open. He spoke of his dreams, his quiet hopes, and the way her presence, even unseen, had brought a profound sense of peace and wonder into his solitary life. He confessed how her gifts, these small, wild treasures, made him feel truly seen and understood in a way he hadn't experienced before. He described the way the iridescent feather caught the lamplight on his desk, and how the taste of the wild berries lingered on his tongue. He expressed his gratitude, not just for the gifts themselves, but for the profound thought and connection they represented. The thought that someone or something was watching over him with such gentle care was deeply moving. The concept of the foxwife was still an unknown to him, but the bond was already weaving its intricate pattern around his heart.
The silent exchange of letters and gifts of the forest continued, weaving a delicate tapestry of connection between Elias and his unseen correspondent. Each sunrise brought a fresh wave of anticipation, a quiet excitement that hummed beneath the surface of his usually placid demeanor. He felt a profound sense of gratitude for this unique friendship, a bond forged in the quiet intimacy of shared thoughts and secret offerings. The woods, once merely a backdrop to his scholarly pursuits, now felt alive with a deeper, more personal magic. One evening, Elias found himself particularly engrossed in his writing. He was composing a lengthy letter describing a new theory he had developed about the migration patterns of ancient forest birds, a topic he knew would intrigue her, given her deep connection to nature. The soft glow of his oil lamp cast warm light across his desk, illuminating the careful strokes of his quill. A gentle, cool breeze drifted in through the open window, rustling the pages of his open book and carrying with it the familiar, earthy scent of damp soil
and sweet, wild blossoms. It was stronger than usual, almost as if the very air itself had decided to visit. He paused, momentarily distracted by the subtle shift in the atmosphere. The forest outside was a deep, inky black, save for the faint sliver of moon struggling to pierce through the dense canopy. As he lifted his gaze from the parchment, his eyes instinctively swept towards the window, drawn by an undefinable feeling, a subtle prickling at the back of his neck. And there she was. For a fleeting, breathtaking moment, no more than a flicker, he saw her, standing at the very edge of his garden, just where the manicured lawn gave way to the wild embrace of the tree line, was a woman. She was slender, almost ethereal, her form outlined against the deeper darkness of the forest. What struck him most vividly was her hair, a cascade of auburn red, shimmering with a rich, burnished quality even in the near absence of light. It seemed to glow with an inner luminescence, a fiery halo against the dark backdrop. She wasn't looking directly at him, but rather gazing towards his cottage, her head tilted slightly, as if listening intently to the quiet rustle of his quill or the soft murmur of his thoughts. Her posture was one of profound stillness, yet there was an undeniable grace about her, a fluid elegance that spoke of a deep connection to the wild. He couldn't discern her features clearly, but he felt an overwhelming sense of recognition, a certainty that this was her, his mysterious letter-writer, his unseen friend. Then, as quickly as she had appeared, she was gone. One moment she was there, a breathtaking vision of auburn and shadow, and the next she had simply melted back into the trees, dissolving into the twilight as silently and effortlessly as a wisp of smoke. There was no rustle of leaves, no snapping twig, just an absence where she had been moments before. Elias sat frozen, his quill still poised over the parchment, his heart thrumming a rapid, uneven rhythm against his ribs. He blinked, unsure if his eyes had played a trick on him, if the long hours of study had finally conjured a vision. But the lingering scent of petrichor, now stronger than ever, and the profound sense of awe that settled over him, told him otherwise. This was real. He had finally caught a glimpse of red, a brief, tantalizing vision of the being behind the beautiful words and thoughtful gifts. He rose slowly from his chair, moving to the window. He peered into the darkness, his eyes straining, but the forest remained silent and impenetrable. The air still carried the faint, sweet scent, a phantom reminder of her fleeting presence. He felt a rush of emotions, exhilaration, profound wonder, and a touch of gentle disappointment that she hadn't stayed longer. Yet there was also a deep respect for her elusive nature, her choice to remain largely hidden. He returned to his desk, but his concentration was irrevocably broken. The ancient bird migration theories seemed mundane compared to the living mystery he had just witnessed. He found himself unable to write another word of his scholarly letter. Instead, he took a fresh piece of parchment and began to write to her, his hand shaking slightly with the lingering afterglow of the encounter. He didn't describe what he saw directly, knowing she preferred the dance of subtlety. Instead, he wrote of the wind, of fleeting beauty, and of the profound peace that settled upon him when he felt a gentle presence nearby. He spoke of how the forest seemed to hold its breath for a moment, revealing a glimpse of its deepest magic, a fleeting vision of its heart. He hoped she would understand. He knew she would.
The brief, breathtaking glimpse of red had ignited a new intensity in Elias's correspondence. He still didn't explicitly mention what he had seen, but his letters began to carry a subtle tremor of wonder, a deeper sense of intimacy. He spoke of the feeling of being watched, not with unease, but with a profound sense of connection, and of the way a certain color, the color of twilight's last embrace, had taken root in his imagination. His words were now laced with a gentle longing, a yearning to understand more of the mystery that unfolded before him. Her replies, in turn, seemed to acknowledge his unspoken observations. Her prose became even more vivid, more imbued with the sensory details of the forest. She wrote of the delicate dance of fireflies in the deep woods, their tiny lights painting ephemeral patterns against the velvet darkness. She described the way the moonbeams would pierce the thick canopy, creating silver shafts of light that illuminated secret glades, places known only to the wild creatures, and perhaps to her. There was a dreamlike quality to her descriptions, an almost hypnotic rhythm that pulled Elias deeper into her world. Then the dreams began. It started subtly, a feeling of déjà vu that would wash over him during his waking hours. He would see a particular arrangement of ancient stones in the forest, or a patch of unusually vibrant moss, and a whisper of familiarity would touch his mind, as if he had seen it before, but not in his conscious memory. The feeling grew stronger, until one night he found himself dreaming. It was a remarkably clear dream, so vivid it felt more like a memory. He was in a hidden glade, bathed in an ethereal moonlight that filtered through the leaves of ancient trees. The air was cool and sweet, scented with night-blooming jasmine and damp earth. All around him, thousands of fireflies danced, their tiny lights blinking in intricate, mesmerizing patterns. They swirled and dipped, painting the air with streaks of gold and green, moving in a silent, joyful celebration. He felt an overwhelming sense of peace and belonging in this magical space. And then he saw her. She wasn't fully distinct, more of a luminous presence, a graceful form moving among the dancing lights. Her auburn hair, even in the dream, seemed to glow, a beacon amidst the shimmering insects. She moved with an effortless grace, her movements mirroring the dance of the fireflies, as if she were one with them. There was no fear, no surprise, only a profound sense of recognition, a quiet joy that settled deep in his heart. He reached out, not quite touching, but feeling the warmth of her presence. The dream ended abruptly, leaving him with a lingering sense of awe and a faint sweet scent on his pillow. The next morning, as he walked to the oak, he found her letter. It was written on a new kind of leaf parchment, slightly thicker, almost shimmering with an inner light. The scent of petrichor was mixed with something new, something sweet and floral, like the dream. He unfolded it, his heart pounding with a strange mixture of anticipation and disbelief. Last night, her elegant script read, "The moon drew me into a dance, and I found myself in a glade filled with light. There was a gentle presence there, a quiet soul who watched with kindness. The shared dreams are a bridge, dear Elias,
a path between our worlds that even waking eyes cannot fully perceive. Do you remember the fireflies? Their dance holds secrets only the heart can understand. Elias felt a shiver run down his spine, a thrill that was both exhilarating and profoundly humbling. She had dreamt it too, or rather, they had dreamt it together. This was a connection far deeper than letters, far beyond simple human interaction. It was a merging of minds, a communion of spirits in the ethereal realm of dreams. The vividness of his own dream, the undeniable details confirmed the impossible. He had walked with her in that moonlit glade, amidst the dancing fireflies. He wrote his reply with a newfound urgency, his hand almost flying across the parchment. He described his dream in detail, the feel of the cool air, the mesmerizing dance of the fireflies, the profound peace of the glade, and the luminous presence of the woman with auburn hair. He confessed his astonishment, his wonder, and his deepening affection for this extraordinary being who could share dreams across the veil of sleep. He didn't question how it was possible, he simply embraced the magic. The realization that they could meet in this dream space added another layer of anticipation to his nights. He began to look forward to sleep, to the possibility of revisiting the moonlit glade, of seeing her form among the dancing lights. His waking hours, while still dedicated to his studies, were now infused with a deeper sense of enchantment. The line between reality and dream began to blur in the most beautiful way. He understood now that their connection was not limited by physical presence, but could transcend it, reaching into the very fabric of their sleeping minds. This was a love story unfolding, not just on paper, but in the shimmering, silent realms of shared dreams.
The shared dreams had opened a new, astonishing dimension to Elias's connection with his mysterious correspondent. Each night held the promise of revisiting the moonlit glade, of witnessing the mesmerizing dance of the fireflies, and of feeling the elusive presence of the woman with auburn hair. These nocturnal encounters felt more real, more intimate than any waking interaction could have been. He began to sleep deeper, more restfully, yet paradoxically, his mind was more alert to the subtle currents of the unseen world. The letters continued, of course, carrying their scent of petrichor and their profound insights into the forest's hidden life. Her words, already poetic, now seemed imbued with the echoes of their shared dreamscape. She wrote of the delicate brush of wings in the darkness, the silent conversations between ancient trees, and the feeling of unseen threads weaving connections between living things. Elias, in turn, described his lingering feelings from the dreams, the sweetness of the night air, and the vividness of the dancing lights. He never directly said, "I saw you," but implied it through the shared imagery, and her responses confirmed their mutual experience. One afternoon, Elias was seated at his writing desk, engrossed in a particularly complex passage of an ancient text. The window was open, letting in the gentle sounds of the forest, the distant cooing of doves, the rustle of leaves, the soft hum of insects. He had just finished a long, intricate paragraph and leaned back in his chair, stretching his fingers. As he did so, his hand, resting idly on the smooth surface of his wooden desk, felt a feather-light touch. It was so subtle, so ephemeral, that for a moment he thought he had imagined it. A mere breath, a whisper of warmth that brushed across the back of his hand, lingering for only an instant before vanishing. It felt like the softest silk or the gentle caress of a butterfly's wing.
Elias froze, his breath catching in his throat. He looked down at his hand, then quickly around the room. There was nothing there. The window was still open, the curtain unmoving, no breeze strong enough to cause such a sensation. Yet the feeling persisted, a ghost of a touch, a warmth that seemed to tingle faintly on his skin, and with it unmistakably came that familiar, intoxicating scent, the rich, earthy aroma of petrichor, now infused with an added sweetness, like honeysuckle blooming at dusk. It was stronger than it had ever been in his study, as if the very air had become saturated with her essence. His heart began to beat a little faster, a soft thrumming against his ribs. He knew, he simply knew, this was more than just a fleeting shadow, more than a shared dream. This was a physical manifestation, a delicate, unseen touch from his mysterious correspondent. She was here, perhaps just outside his window, perhaps closer still, her presence so subtle, so ethereal, that it barely registered in the physical world. It was a silent, profound caress, a confirmation that the boundaries between their worlds were indeed thinning. Elias remained still, holding his breath, not daring to move for fear of disturbing the delicate magic of the moment. He closed his eyes, concentrating, trying to feel her presence, to understand this extraordinary phenomenon. He felt a profound sense of peace wash over him, a gentle warmth that spread from his hand throughout his entire being. There was no fear, only an overwhelming sense of wonder and a deep, quiet joy. It was as if the forest itself had reached out to him through her. After a few moments, the sensation faded, leaving only the lingering scent and the vivid memory of the gentle warmth. He opened his eyes, a soft smile gracing his lips. He knew she was still out there, her presence a silent hum around his cottage. He spent the rest of the afternoon in a state of quiet contemplation, his mind filled with the wonder of the unseen touch. When he went to the oak the next morning, her letter was already there, tied with a delicate vine that seemed to glow faintly. He could feel its warmth before he untied it. Her words, written in her elegant script, seemed to shimmer with a newfound intimacy. Sometimes the forest reaches out, not with branches, but with a whisper of its heart. Do you feel the warmth that lingers? It is the echo of connection, a subtle brush against the veil between worlds. The unseen touch is often the most profound. Elias read the words, his eyes misting slightly with emotion. He knew. She always knew. The connection was deepening, becoming more tangible, more real, even in its invisibility. He understood now that her world was not just in the dreams or in the letters, but could bleed into his own waking reality, subtly, gently, beautifully. This gentle touch was a promise, a soft assurance that their unique bond was growing stronger with each passing day. He looked forward to the next touch, the next subtle sign, knowing that with each one their two worlds were quietly, beautifully becoming one.
The unseen touch had left an indelible mark on Elias, a profound affirmation of the deepening connection he shared with his mysterious correspondent. His senses, already heightened by the gifts and shared dreams, now seemed finely tuned to the subtle energies of the forest. He felt a constant, gentle hum of presence around his cottage, a silent, comforting awareness that she was near, observing him with the same quiet care he felt for her. Their letters continued to flow,
a river of words carrying their thoughts and feelings. Her writing, always poetic, began to weave in increasingly complex and ancient themes. She spoke not just of the forest's current life, but of its deep past, of cycles of growth and decay stretching back through millennia. She described the memory held within the oldest trees, the way they remembered ancient storms, long-forgotten droughts, and the passing of countless generations of creatures. Elias found himself completely captivated, his scholarly mind eager to absorb these new, profound insights. In one letter, she wrote, "The wisdom of the earth is a slow, patient whisper, carried by the very dust of ages. My lineage is bound to this patience, to the rhythm of the turning seasons and the silent strength of the roots that hold the world. There are tales of transformation woven into the very fabric of my being, stories of adaptation and change that mirror the forest's endless renewal. We are not merely observers, dear Elias, but participants in this grand, ancient dance." Her words resonated deeply within him, sparking a flicker of recognition for something he had read in forgotten folk tales and myths. Now, however, the elegant prose of his correspondent, so grounded in the tangible reality of the forest, yet hinting at the fantastical, made him reconsider. Was it possible that the old stories held more truth than he had ever dared to imagine? He reread passages in his ancient texts about spirits of the woods, about beings who could shift their forms, beings intrinsically tied to the land. What he had once dismissed as superstition now felt like a veil beginning to lift. He wrote back, cautiously, about these ancient tales, not as a challenge, but as a gentle exploration. He shared excerpts from his books, particularly those that spoke of nature spirits and animal-human transformations, and asked if there was wisdom in such old beliefs. He admitted his scholarly skepticism, but also his growing openness, his willingness to believe in wonders that defied conventional understanding. He spoke of how her letters had expanded his own world, making him question the rigid boundaries he had always perceived. He conveyed his profound respect for whatever ancient lineage she hinted at, and expressed his awe at her intimate connection to the earth's timeless cycles. Her reply was warm, gentle, and subtly affirming. "The old tales," she wrote, "are echoes of deeper truths, reflections of the spirit world mirrored in the human heart. Transformation is not just a story, Elias, but a constant process within nature and within all beings connected to its pulse. The rustling of leaves, the flow of the stream, the shifting of seasons, all are forms of change. My own existence, too, is a testament to this ancient rhythm, a part of the forest's living memory. Do not fear what defies your understanding, for sometimes true knowledge lies beyond the grasp of logic." She didn't explicitly state her nature, but her words were a soft, knowing nod. Elias felt a profound sense of calm settle over him. He wasn't afraid. Instead, he felt a deep sense of wonder and privilege. He was corresponding with a being deeply rooted in the primal magic of the world, a living embodiment of the tales of transformation he had only read about. It explained the leaf-like parchment, the intoxicating scent, the fluid movement he had glimpsed, the shared dreams and the ethereal touch. It explained her profound connection to the forest, a connection that seemed to go beyond mere observation into an intrinsic belonging. He began to observe the forest with new eyes, seeing not just trees and animals, but a tapestry of interconnected life, each thread vibrating with ancient energy. He spent more time outdoors, sitting quietly among the trees, trying to feel the pulse of the earth she spoke of. He left her small offerings, not just of human craft, but of natural beauty. A perfectly smooth stone he found in the river, a fallen bird's nest woven with incredible intricacy. He knew instinctively that she would appreciate these gestures of shared reverence for the natural world. Their unique relationship was not just about two individuals, but about a bridge between two worlds, built on mutual respect, deep affection, and a shared understanding of the profound magic that lay hidden in plain sight.
A deep, even, easy-to-listen male voice, like a fairy tale teller helping others fall asleep. The subtle hints of tales of transformation and ancient lineage had settled in Elias's heart, not with trepidation, but with a profound sense of awe. He no longer saw the mysterious woman of the woods as merely a reclusive individual, but as a living bridge to the primordial magic of the earth. His days continued their scholarly rhythm, but his nights were now infused with a deeper expectation, a silent yearning for more than just shared dreams or unseen touches. He wanted to truly see her, to be in her presence in the waking world, to speak to her directly, to bridge the final, delicate gap between them. This growing desire manifested itself in his letters. While still respectful of her elusive nature, his words began to carry a gentle plea, a heartfelt expression of his readiness to meet her on her terms. He wrote of the moon's quiet wisdom, of the dawn's gentle promise, and how the world seemed to hold its breath just before the sun touched the horizon. He spoke of the quiet courage he had found in embracing the unknown, a courage she had inadvertently awakened within him. "My heart," he wrote in one particularly poignant letter, "now understands that true beauty often lies just beyond the veil of what we perceive. I have learned to listen to the whispers of the wind, to feel the silent pulse of the earth, and to anticipate the rise of the sun with a new kind of hope. If there is a moment, a place, a specific turn of the world where our paths might truly converge, I would be there, with an open heart and a spirit ready to receive your grace." Her replies, which had always been infused with a sense of the wild, began to shift subtly. The usual descriptions of the forest secrets were now accompanied by a delicate thread of introspection, a pondering on the nature of light and shadow, visibility and concealment. She wrote of the vulnerability of revelation, the delicate balance between showing and hiding. Yet through these musings, Elias detected a growing willingness, a soft unfolding that mirrored the coming of spring after a long winter. One morning, he found a new letter at the base of the oak. It was larger than usual, and the leaf parchment seemed to shimmer with an inner light, almost translucent in the early morning sun. The scent was potent, a rich symphony of damp earth, sweet honeysuckle, and something subtly fresh, like dew on newly unfurled leaves. Elias untied it with trembling fingers, his heart quickening its pace. This felt different. This felt like the answer he had been waiting for. Her elegant script flowed across the natural canvas. "Dear Elias, your patience has been a gentle rain on parched earth, and your understanding a comforting warmth.
The veil between our worlds is thin indeed, as thin as the first light before the sun crests the highest branches. There is a moment, brief and ethereal, when the night fully gives way to day, when the stars have not quite faded and the sun has not yet fully embraced the sky. In that liminal space, the world shifts, and what is hidden may briefly show itself. I long to meet the kind soul who understands the language of the forest and writes with such a gentle heart. Then came the specific instructions woven seamlessly into the poetic prose. When the very first blush of light touches the highest peak of the tallest pine that stands guard over the old clearing, the one with the lightning-scarred top, be there. You will know the spot. Come alone. Come with an open mind and a quiet heart. This is the promise of dawn, Elias, a fragile moment when our worlds may truly touch. Elias read the letter again and again, his heart swelling with a mixture of exhilaration and profound emotion. The old clearing, he knew it well. It was a place deep within the woods, far from his cottage, a wide, open space surrounded by ancient trees, dominated by a towering pine whose top had indeed been struck by lightning years ago, leaving a stark, sentinel-like silhouette against the sky. He had often felt a strange, ancient energy in that clearing, a sense of timelessness. It was the perfect place. He spent the rest of the day in a state of quiet anticipation, preparing for the momentous meeting. He gathered nothing but himself, his thoughts, and his unwavering trust. He knew this was not a meeting to be approached with human expectations or conventional attire. He simply needed to be present, open, and ready. As night fell, he found it difficult to sleep, his mind replaying her words, imagining the fleeting moment when the first light would paint the ancient pine. The promise of dawn hung in the air, a beautiful, fragile hope that had finally taken tangible form.
The promise of dawn hung in the air like a delicate, shimmering veil, a beacon guiding Elias through the deepest part of the night. Sleep eluded him, not from restlessness, but from a profound sense of anticipation that thrummed through every fiber of his being. He rose from his bed long before the first hint of light, dressing in simple, comfortable clothes that wouldn't rustle too loudly in the quiet of the woods. He left his lamp unlit, relying on the faint, ethereal glow of the waning moon filtering through his window. The cottage felt silent and still, holding its breath with him. He stepped outside into the cool embrace of the pre-dawn forest. The air was crisp and carried the rich, damp scent of decaying leaves and fresh earth, mingled with a subtle, sweet perfume, the familiar scent of his correspondent, now seeming to precede him, guiding his way. The path to the old clearing was well worn by his previous explorations, but tonight it felt different. Each step was deliberate, imbued with significance. The trees, usually silent sentinels, seemed to whisper secrets as he passed, their branches reaching out like ancient arms, welcoming him deeper into their domain. As he walked, his mind drifted between the logical and the wondrous. He, a scholar of reason and empirical evidence, was walking into the forest to meet a being who communicated through scented leaves, shared dreams, and fleeting auburn glimpses. Yet there was no fear, only a deep sense of trust that had been meticulously built through months of gentle, profound exchange. His heart was a drumbeat of hope
and excitement, pushing aside any lingering doubts. This was not a moment for skepticism, but for belief. The moon, a thin crescent, dipped below the horizon just as Elias reached the outer edge of the old clearing. The vast expanse of the clearing lay before him, a wide, open space surrounded by a cathedral of ancient trees. In the very center, towering above all others, stood the lightning-scarred pine. Its fractured top reached like a gnarled hand towards the heavens, its silhouette stark and majestic against the gradually lightening sky. This was the place. This was the very peak her letter had indicated. Elias walked to the base of the giant pine, placing his hand on its rough, ancient bark. It felt alive beneath his palm, thrumming with silent energy. He turned to face the east, where the first hint of light would appear. The sky was still a deep indigo, but along the eastern horizon a faint, almost imperceptible blush of rose and gold was beginning to spread. The stars, once brilliant, now seemed to dim, fading into the encroaching light. The air was still, holding its breath. The only sounds were the distant hoot of an owl, now less mournful, more a farewell to the night, and the gentle rustle of his own anticipation. He waited, his gaze fixed on the highest peak of the lightning-scarred pine. Every fiber of his being was alert, attuned to the subtle shifts in the light, the slightest movement in the shadows. A profound stillness settled over the clearing, a sacred silence that magnified every beat of his heart. The air grew cooler, then warmed slightly as the light intensified. The blush on the horizon deepened, painting the sky with ethereal hues of lavender, peach, and soft gold. The very first ray of sunlight, a slender golden spear, touched the highest, jagged point of the ancient pine. It was a fleeting, magnificent moment, as if the tree itself had caught the dawn and held it for an instant. Elias felt a surge of exhilaration. This was it. This was the precise moment. He scanned the clearing, his eyes sweeping across the dewy grass, the shadowed edges of the forest, the silent, waiting trees. He held his breath, his heart pounding a steady rhythm against his ribs. But there was nothing. The light continued to grow, quickly, steadily. The clearing brightened, revealing every blade of grass, every dew-dropped spiderweb. The shadows retreated, shrinking back into the denser parts of the woods. The soft hues of dawn gave way to the clearer, bolder light of morning. The birds began to sing, a chorus of chirps and trills filling the air, announcing the arrival of a new day. Yet the clearing remained empty. No figure emerged from the trees, no subtle shift of form, no gentle presence, just the rising sun, the awakening forest, and the profound quiet of an unfulfilled meeting. A wave of disappointment, cold and sharp, washed over him. It was quickly followed by a pang of doubt. Had he misunderstood? Had he misread the subtle clues in her letters? Had he, in his eagerness, conjured a meeting that was never truly promised in the way he had hoped? The magic of the moment began to dissipate, replaced by the stark reality of the empty clearing. He stood there for a long time, the warmth of the sun on his face, feeling the chill of loneliness settle into his bones. The anticipation and doubt battled within him, a quiet skirmish in the heart of the now brightened woods. The disappointment of the unfulfilled meeting settled over Elias like a cold, damp mist. The vibrant anticipation that had fueled his journey to the old clearing had curdled into a quiet ache of doubt. He lingered for a long time, watching the sun climb higher, painting the ancient pine with bold strokes of gold. But the magical shift he had hoped for never materialized. Had he truly misunderstood her subtle cues? Was his longing too eager, too human for her ethereal nature? He walked back to his cottage, the familiar path now feeling long and heavy, each step echoing the quiet thrum of his unanswered questions. He spent the day in a haze of introspection, his scholarly pursuits unable to hold his attention. He reread all her letters, searching for any misinterpreted phrase, any subtle warning he might have overlooked. Her words about the very first blush of light and the liminal space seemed clear enough, yet the clearing had remained empty. A quiet sadness began to settle in his heart, a fear that perhaps their delicate connection, so beautifully woven, was destined to remain just that, a connection of words and dreams, never quite tangible. As evening approached, casting long purple shadows across his study, Elias felt an inexplicable pull towards the window that overlooked the deepest part of the woods. He wasn't sure why. Perhaps a lingering habit of looking for the fleeting glimpse he'd once seen. The air was cool, carrying the familiar scent of damp earth and wild honeycomb, perhaps a little stronger than usual. He sighed, leaning his forehead against the cool glass, lost in thought. Then, just as the last sliver of twilight faded from the sky, replaced by the deepening indigo of early night, a movement at the very edge of the tree line caught his eye. It wasn't the fleeting shadow he had seen before, nor was it the graceful outline of a woman. Instead, a creature emerged from the gloom, stepping onto the dewy grass with an almost regal bearing. It was a magnificent golden red fox. Its fur shimmered with an incredible vibrancy, a rich tapestry of russet and fiery gold that seemed to absorb and reflect the dying light. Its brush, thick and luxuriant, curled gracefully behind it. But it was its eyes that truly captivated Elias. They were not the typical eyes of a wild animal, darting and wary. Instead, they held a profound depth, an intelligence and a gentle warmth that was unmistakably familiar. There was an ancient wisdom in their depths, a knowing gaze that seemed to penetrate directly into Elias's soul. He felt a jolt of recognition, a certainty that spread through him like wildfire. The fox moved with an ethereal grace, its paws barely disturbing the grass. It took a few steps towards the cottage, then paused, turning its head slightly. Its gaze was fixed directly on Elias, who stood frozen at the window, barely daring to breathe. There was no aggression, no fear, only a quiet invitation in its steady, warm stare. The familiar scent of petrichor, now tinged with a subtle, wild, musky undertone, filled the air around his window, enveloping him in its presence. Elias felt a profound wave of understanding wash over him, as clear and undeniable as the rising moon. The glimpse of red, the elusive nature, the deep connection to the forest, the tales of transformation, the scent, the shared dreams, and the warmth of the unseen touch. It all coalesced into this single breathtaking moment. The woman he had been corresponding with, the being who had woven herself into the fabric of his solitary life, was the fox. Or rather, she could be the fox. This was the form she chose to reveal herself in, after the human form had proven too brief, too elusive. A sense of awe, so profound it brought tears to his eyes, settled over him. He was not disappointed. Far from it. A different kind of wonder, deeper and more magical than he could have ever imagined, now filled the space left by his earlier doubt. The creature stood for a few more moments, its golden eyes holding his gaze, a silent acknowledgment passing between them. Then, with a final, graceful turn, it melted back into the shadows of the forest, disappearing as silently as it had arrived. Elias remained at the window, his hand pressed against the cool glass. The image of the golden red fox burned into his mind. He knew now. The promise of dawn had not been unfulfilled. It had simply revealed itself in a way he hadn't anticipated, a way far more ancient and magical than a simple human encounter. He realized that the meeting had happened just not in the human form he had expected. He had met her, not as a woman, but as a magnificent, wise creature of the wild. The golden fox was his elusive correspondent, and the revelation filled his heart with a quiet, boundless joy.
The vision of the magnificent golden red fox had transformed Elias's understanding of his mysterious correspondent from a scholarly curiosity into a profound, almost spiritual connection. The initial pang of disappointment from the unfulfilled dawn meeting had completely dissolved, replaced by a deep sense of wonder and awe. He now understood that the meeting had occurred, just not in the conventional human sense he had anticipated. The fox, with its warm, intelligent eyes and undeniable presence, was her true form, or at least a significant aspect of it. The next morning, Elias approached the old oak with a newfound reverence. He no longer expected a human presence, but looked for the subtle signs of her wild spirit. As he reached the tree, he found a fresh letter, the leaf parchment shimmering with a faint, dewy luminescence, even in the shade. The scent of petrichor was strong, accompanied by a subtle, musky scent that he now recognized as the essence of the fox. He unfolded the letter, his heart full of quiet anticipation. Her elegant script flowed across the natural canvas. Did the dawn reveal a different truth than you expected, dear Elias? The world holds many forms, and understanding often comes not through expectation, but through openness of heart. My presence is not always in the shape you might anticipate, but my spirit, I hope, remains constant. Did you feel the warmth in the quiet night? Did you see the flash of gold? Elias felt a wave of profound relief and affirmation wash over him. She knew. She had confirmed it. His vision was not a trick of the light or a figment of his imagination. He had truly seen her in her wild, beautiful form. He sat at the base of the oak, leaning against its rough bark, and began to write his reply immediately, using a small notebook and pencil he now carried for such moments. "My dear friend," he began, his hand steady despite the emotion swelling within him. "The dawn revealed a truth far more wondrous than I could have ever imagined. The image of the golden fox is etched into my heart, vibrant and breathtaking. Your eyes, so full of warmth and ancient wisdom, spoke a language that transcended words. Yes, I felt your presence last night, a profound warmth that settled over me, and the flash of gold was a vision I will carry always." He continued, expressing his deep gratitude for her trust, for revealing such a sacred part of her being to him.
He didn't ask for explanations or apologies for her elusiveness. Instead, he simply accepted it with a quiet understanding that felt entirely natural. He wrote of how this revelation only deepened his respect and affection for her, making their connection even more extraordinary. He spoke of the quiet understanding that now existed between them, a bond that needed no spoken words, only the silent language of shared awareness and deep respect. He acknowledged the ancient silent understanding that now flowed between them, deeper than any words could convey. From that day forward, Elias's relationship with the forest and with her deepened immeasurably. He often saw the golden fox during his walks, sometimes a fleeting glimpse of red disappearing into the undergrowth, other times a longer, more serene observation from a distance. The fox would sometimes pause, its head tilted, its intelligent eyes meeting his, a silent acknowledgment passing between them. There were no more expectations of a human form, only an acceptance of her fluidity, her connection to the wild heart of nature. He began to leave small, carefully chosen offerings, not just at the oak, but in other secluded spots where he sometimes saw her, a particularly bright piece of quartz, a meticulously carved wooden bird, a small bowl of fresh, sweet water. These were not offerings of appeasement, but gestures of love and profound appreciation, a silent dialogue between his human world and her wild one. The letters continued, of course, their ethereal quality unchanged, yet now infused with the knowledge of her true nature. Her words continued to reveal the ancient wisdom of the forest, but now Elias could picture the golden fox behind them, could feel the rustle of her fur in the words that spoke of wind through the trees, could see the glint of her intelligent eyes in the descriptions of moonlight on dew-kissed leaves. The silent understanding that had blossomed between them was more profound than any conventional bond, a testament to a love that truly transcended form. Elias had found his fox-wife not in a storybook, but in the living, breathing heart of the ancient woods. And his own heart had never felt so full. The silent understanding that had bloomed between Elias and the foxwife was now the bedrock of his existence. The revelation of her golden form had deepened his connection to the forest itself, turning every walk into a pilgrimage, every quiet moment into an opportunity for communion. He learned to interpret the subtle signs of her presence, the fresh tracks in the soft earth, the rustle of leaves that seemed to carry a message, the distinct scent of petrichor and wild musk that would occasionally drift through his study window. He no longer yearned for human words from her, for he had found a richer, more profound language in her movements, her gaze, and the very essence of her wild spirit. One crisp autumn morning, Elias set out with a quiet sense of purpose. Her latest letter, found at the oak tree, had been brief, yet immensely potent. It spoke of a place, a hidden sanctuary deep within the woods, where time seemed to slow, and the ancient magic of the earth hummed with particular vibrancy. The glade where the moon dances and the fireflies shimmer awaits your quiet footsteps. Come when the sun is at its highest and the shadows are shortest. I will lead the way, she had written. Elias knew the glade. It was the very same place from their shared dreams, a spot he had revisited in his mind countless times. He had tried to find it in his waking hours, but it always seemed to elude him, hidden behind a veil of trees that shifted and rearranged themselves with uncanny purpose. Today, however, he felt a certainty that it would reveal itself. He walked deeper into the forest than he had ever had before, following a path that seemed to materialize just for him. The air grew cooler, the sunlight more dappled, and the sounds of the outside world faded into a hushed stillness. After what felt like hours, though it might have been less, he sensed a shift. The trees began to thin, and a soft, ethereal light permeated the air. He pushed through a final curtain of ancient ferns, and then there it was, the glade of whispers. It was exactly as he had seen it in his dreams, a perfectly circular clearing ringed by ancient, towering trees whose branches formed a natural cathedral ceiling. The grass was a vibrant, impossibly soft green, carpeted with delicate wildflowers he had never seen before. A small, crystal-clear spring bubbled gently in the center, its water shimmering with an inner light. The air was thick with the scent of damp moss and a faint, sweet perfume, a scent that now brought tears to Elias's eyes with its familiarity. And there, waiting for him by the spring, was the golden-red fox. She sat perfectly still, her tail curled elegantly around her paws, her magnificent fur glowing like embers in the dappled sunlight. Her eyes, those intelligent, knowing eyes, met his with a gaze of profound welcome and gentle affection. There was no fear in her posture, no wild skittishness, only a deep, abiding trust. Elias approached slowly, respectfully, not wanting to break the delicate magic of the moment. He stopped a few feet from her, kneeling gently on the soft grass. He didn't speak, knowing words were unnecessary. The fox rose fluidly, and then, with a subtle shift of her head, she began to move, leading him deeper into the glade. She didn't lead him to grand, dramatic sights, but to quiet wonders. She showed him a patch of bioluminescent moss that glowed faintly even in the daylight, a delicate emerald luminescence against the dark earth. She led him to a hidden nook where tiny jewel-toned birds flitted among ancient gnarled roots, their songs like miniature melodies. She showed him a place where the sunlight filtered through a single opening in the canopy, creating a perfect, shimmering column of light that seemed to pulse with life. At each spot, the fox would pause, looking at him, and Elias felt as though she was speaking volumes without uttering a sound. He felt her guiding his gaze, drawing his attention to the intricate beauty and secret lives of the forest. He knelt by the bubbling spring and drank, the water tasting impossibly fresh, cool, and clean, as if it held the very essence of the earth. He felt a profound sense of nourishment, not just for his body, but for his soul. They spent the entire day in the glade of whispers, a timeless dance between man and fox. Elias felt no hunger, no thirst, no passage of hours. He simply existed, fully present, immersed in the profound quietude and ancient wisdom of the glade, guided by the silent grace of his fox-wife. It was a day of pure communion, a deepening of their bond that transcended all previous forms of connection. He was no longer just a scholar. He was a silent participant in the forest's ancient song, led by the one who truly understood its every note. The day spent in the glade of whispers with the golden fox was an experience Elias would forever cherish. It was a day outside of time, a living dream where the boundaries between his world and hers had dissolved into a seamless flow of shared understanding. He had seen the forest through her eyes, felt its ancient pulse, and understood the profound, silent language of its hidden wonders. As the sun began its slow descent, casting long, gilded shadows across the clearing, a quiet melancholy settled upon him, a gentle reluctance for the magic of the day to end. The fox, as if sensing his thoughts, led him to a small, secluded pool within the glade, its surface mirroring the deepening hues of the sky. The water was still and clear, reflecting the distant fiery glow of the setting sun. Elias knelt beside it, and the fox sat beside him, its warm fur brushing against his arm, a tangible, comforting presence. The scent of petrichor and wild sweetness was strong here, wrapping around him like a soft blanket. As the last sliver of the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in a spectacular array of oranges, purples, and deep reds, a subtle shift began to occur. The air around the fox began to shimmer, an almost imperceptible distortion, like heat rising from the ground. Elias watched, his breath caught in his throat, a deep sense of awe filling him. The outline of the fox seemed to soften, to blur at the edges. Her fur, still vividly golden red, appeared to ripple, subtly elongating, thinning. The intelligent, knowing eyes remained constant, fixed on his, but the shape around them began to subtly transform. Slowly, gracefully, as if in a dream, the form of the magnificent golden fox began to lengthen, to reshape itself. The delicate muzzle receded, the ears softened, and the sleek body began to take on a more upright, slender form. It was a gradual, wondrous metamorphosis, not sudden or jarring, but flowing, like water transforming into mist. Elias watched, mesmerized, without fear or surprise, only a deep reverence. He understood now that this was her true nature, this fluidity, this ability to embody the ancient tales of transformation. And then, in the lingering twilight, standing before him where the fox had been, was the woman. She was slender, her form ethereal yet undeniably real. Her hair, a magnificent cascade of auburn red, shimmered in the fading light, exactly as he had glimpsed it at his window weeks ago. Her eyes, those profound, knowing eyes, were the same as the fox's, holding that familiar warmth and ancient wisdom. She was dressed in what appeared to be garments woven from leaves and soft moss, blending seamlessly with the forest around her. She was the very embodiment of the whispering woods, beautiful and wild and deeply, deeply ancient. A profound silence descended upon the glade, broken only by the soft murmur of the spring water. She did not speak, but her gaze conveyed everything. Elias felt a wave of emotions wash over him, recognition, overwhelming affection, and a quiet understanding of the immense trust she had placed in him by revealing her true, mutable self. There was a gentle sadness in her eyes, too, a poignant awareness of the fundamental difference between their worlds, even in this moment of intimate revelation. He remained kneeling, simply gazing at her, letting the profound reality of her presence wash over him. This was the one who wrote to him in the wind, who sent him gifts of the forest, who shared his dreams, and whose unseen touch had warmed his hand. This was his fox-wife. The sunset revelation was more than just a physical transformation. It was a deepening of soul, a moment where two disparate worlds finally touched and found profound beauty in their convergence. The silence between them was not empty, but filled with unspoken words, with the weight of shared secrets and a love that defied all conventional understanding. The sunset revelation in the glade of whispers was a moment suspended in time, a breathtaking culmination of Elias's journey into the heart of the forest's magic. To see her standing before him, the woman of the auburn hair, her eyes holding the ancient wisdom of the fox, was to witness a truth far grander than any he had ever encountered in his scholarly pursuits. The silence between them was profound, filled with understanding that transcended mere words. There was no need for explanations of how. The why was enough, a deep, undeniable connection that had drawn them together. As the last vestiges of twilight faded, and the first tentative stars pricked the deepening sky, she finally spoke. Her voice was soft, like the rustle of leaves in a gentle breeze, yet it carried an ancient resonance, a melody woven from the very fabric of the forest. "Elias," she whispered, her voice barely audible, "you have seen what few mortals are permitted to witness. You have looked beyond the veil, not with fear, but with an open heart. This glade, this moment, is where two worlds meet, and where my true nature can briefly be glimpsed." She spoke of her lineage, an ancient line of beings tied intrinsically to the earth, protectors and embodiments of the forest spirit. "We are of the wild," she explained, her gaze sweeping across the ancient trees, "bound to the cycles of the moon, the turning of the seasons, the ebb and flow of life and death within these woods. Our forms are not fixed, but fluid, shifting like the wind through the branches, adapting to the needs of the land and the pull of the spirit. What you saw as the golden fox is as much me as what you see now. It is the essence of my ancient bond with this place, with all that is wild and untamed." She spoke of the challenges inherent in her existence, the solitude and the perpetual dance between the visible and the unseen. "We live on the edges of your world, Elias, observing, protecting, but rarely interacting in such a tangible way. To reveal oneself to risk vulnerability, to expose a truth that many would not comprehend, or worse, would fear and seek to control. But your letters, your gentle spirit, your unwavering curiosity spoke to a part of me that yearned for connection beyond the silent language of the forest." Elias listened, captivated by the soft cadence of her voice, absorbing every word. He felt no desire to question, only to understand. He finally spoke, his voice hoarse with emotion. "I am humbled by your trust and endlessly fascinated by your world. My own life, though filled with knowledge, has always felt incomplete. Your presence, in whatever form, has brought a profound beauty and wonder I never thought possible. I feel as though I am finally seeing the world as it truly is, vibrant and alive with unseen magic." She smiled, a gentle, melancholic expression that touched his heart. "Your heart is open, Elias, and that is a rare and precious thing. My life is intertwined with this forest. Its health is my health. Its peace is my peace. My purpose is to guard its ancient secret, to nurture its growth, and to dance with its wild spirit. This ancient bond is not a choice, but a destiny." She explained that while she could sometimes assume a human-like form, it was never truly stable, never truly comfortable for long. Her natural state was the wild, the untamed, the fluidity of the fox. She needed the deep connection to the earth, the freedom of movement, the camouflage of the forest to truly thrive. Her appearance before him now was a profound act of trust and a testament to the strength of their unique bond, a temporary bridge built for him. As the moon began its slow ascent, casting silver light through the canopy, Elias realized the profound implications of her words. Their connection was real, deep, and undeniable. But their lives were fundamentally different. She was of the wild, and he was of the human world. Their ancient bond was strong, but it also held the bittersweet understanding of separation. Yet, even as this realization settled, a quiet determination bloomed within him. He would find a way for their two worlds to coexist, to nourish this extraordinary connection, no matter what form it took. The revelation of her ancient bond to the forest, her fluid nature, and the bittersweet truth of her existence settled upon Elias with a profound grace. The sadness he felt was not one of despair, but of a quiet understanding of the immense, beautiful challenge that lay before them. She was the heart of the wild, and he a scholar of the human world, yet their souls had intertwined in a way neither could deny. The glade of whispers, now bathed in the ethereal glow of the moon, felt like a sacred space where the impossible had become real. "I understand," Elias murmured, his voice gentle, "and I would not ask you to be anything less than who you are. The forest is your essence, your home. My world is different, yes, but my heart is open to yours in all your forms." She gazed at him, her eyes still reflecting the wisdom of the fox, softening with a deep, ancient affection. "Our worlds may be disparate, Elias," she whispered, "but a bridge has been built between them. A love across worlds is a rare and precious thing, requiring understanding beyond what is seen, and patience beyond what is easily given. My life is woven into the tapestry of the trees, the whispers of the wind. I cannot leave it." "And I would not ask you to," he replied, his voice firm with conviction. "My home is here, at the edge of your woods. My work, my life, has always been quiet and solitary. Perhaps it was always meant to lead me to this understanding." He looked around the glade, its beauty intensified by the moonlight. "I will learn from you. I will honor your connection to this place, and I will find a way for our love to exist, even if it defies the conventions of my world." They spoke for a long time under the silent, watchful gaze of the ancient trees. She shared more about the rhythms of her life, the long periods of rest and deep connection to the earth during winter, the vibrant energy of spring, the watchful guardianship of summer, and the reflective quietude of autumn. She spoke of the subtle dangers that sometimes threaten the forest, and her role in subtly guiding its balance. Elias, in turn, spoke of his longing to protect this sacred place, to learn more about its intricate ecosystem, and to use his knowledge not to conquer, but to understand and preserve. He confessed his profound affection, not just for her, but for the world she embodied. He spoke of the solitude he had embraced for so long, and how her arrival, however mysterious, had filled a void he didn't even realize existed. He promised to keep her secret safe, to respect her boundaries, and to cherish the unique bond they shared. The conversation was not one of sadness, but of acceptance and quiet determination. They acknowledged the reality of their differing natures, the human scholar rooted in his cottage and his books, the wild spirit intrinsically tied to the ever-shifting forest. A conventional life together, a shared roof and daily routines was an impossibility, yet the depth of their emotional and spiritual connection was undeniable. It was a love that didn't demand physical proximity in the way human love often did, but thrived on understanding, respect, and a profound appreciation for each other's essence. As the first faint streaks of dawn began to paint the sky, a subtle shimmer returned to the air around her. Her form began to softly blur, to melt at the edges, a gentle ripple as the human shape yielded to the wilder essence. Elias watched, his heart full, etching every detail into his memory. The auburn hair seemed to flow, drawing back into the rich, fiery fur. The graceful limbs softened, shortening, shifting. Within moments, the magnificent golden-red fox sat before him again, its intelligent eyes meeting his, a silent goodbye in their depth. The fox nudged his hand gently with her soft muzzle, a final lingering touch, then turned and gracefully melted into the waking forest. Elias remained in the glade, the memory of her voice, her form, and her profound love echoing in the stillness. He understood now. Their love would be unconventional, a dance between two worlds. He would continue to write his letters, leave his offerings, and cherish the glimpses and shared dreams. And he would dedicate his life to understanding and protecting the forest that was her home, nurturing the very essence of a love across worlds that defied all definition.
With the sunset revelation and the profound understanding of a love across worlds, Elias's life settled into a new, deeply resonant rhythm. His scholarly pursuits remained, but they were now infused with a living, breathing context, the ancient wisdom of the forest, the subtle magic that flowed through its hidden pathways. He spent more time outdoors, not just walking, but observing with a heightened sensitivity, seeking the quiet signs of the life she embodied. He had learned that love could exist beyond the confines of human expectation, finding its truest expression in understanding and acceptance. The letters continued, forming the enduring bridge between their two realities. Elias still wrote on his fine parchment, carefully choosing his words, sharing his thoughts, his observations of the human world, and his deepening insights into the forest. He spoke of the changes in his garden, the migration of specific bird species he had been studying, and the quiet joys of his solitary life, all filtered through the lens of their unique bond. He never forgot to include a small drawing of a fox or a leaf at the end of his messages,
a silent, affectionate nod to her true form. Her replies, on the other hand, became even more infused with the essence of the wild. The leaf-like parchment, already remarkable, seemed to carry stronger whispers of the wind, the scent of fresh rain, and the subtle warmth of sun-drenched earth. Elias would find them tied to the old oak, or sometimes nestled gently on his doorstep, as if placed there by an invisible hand. Her words often described the forest's deeper mysteries, the intricate network of roots that communicated beneath the soil, the silent songs of the ancient trees, and the unseen currents of energy that flowed through the land. "The wind, Elias," she wrote in one particularly evocative letter, "is not merely air in motion. It carries the sighs of the ancient ones, the laughter of the young leaves, and the whispered secrets of the shifting seasons. It is a messenger, a storyteller, carrying thoughts and feelings across vast distances. My own thoughts, my affection for you, often ride on its currents." Elias realized the profound truth in her words. Her letters were not just ink on leaf, they were imbued with the very spirit of the forest. When he held them, he could almost feel the breeze rustle through the words, hear the distant call of a wild creature embedded in the elegant script. He began to think of them not merely as letters, but as embodiments of the wind itself, carrying her essence to him. He experimented in his own subtle ways. When he wrote his replies, he would open his windows wide, allowing the forest air to circulate around his parchment. He would sometimes hold the letter aloft for a moment, letting the breeze touch it, hoping to infuse it with his own spirit before he took it to the oak. He began to leave his replies in places where the wind was particularly active, sometimes tied to a slender swaying branch, other times tucked under a stone on a wind-swept hillock, always ensuring they were secure yet exposed to the elements. This became their new ritual, letters in the breeze. It was a testament to their unconventional love, a way of communicating that honored her nature and embraced the profound magic of the world around them. Their correspondence was no longer just a static exchange of written words, but a dynamic, living dialogue carried on the invisible currents of the air. The words were merely anchors for the true message, which was carried by the scent, the subtle shimmer of the leaf, and the very feeling of the wind that had touched it. Elias would often sit by his window in the evenings, watching the leaves dance in the wind, listening to its varied whispers. He imagined her out there, somewhere in the deep woods, feeling the same wind, perhaps even reading one of his letters, carried to her by the very same currents. It was a profound and comforting thought, a constant reminder that their connection, though ethereal, was as real and enduring as the ancient trees themselves. Their love was not bound by human limitations, but flowed freely, carried by the wild heart of the forest, delivered on the silent, knowing breath of the wind. The letters in the breeze became the enduring testament to Elias's unique bond with the fox wife. His life, once solely dedicated to dusty tomes, now revolved around the subtle rhythms of the forest, each season bringing new insights and deeper appreciation for the world she embodied. He recognized that their love was not merely a romantic connection, but a profound understanding that transcended conventional human relationships, a sacred bridge between two distinct realms. He consciously began to integrate his scholarship with his reverence for the natural world. His studies of ancient texts now sought parallels between old myths and the living magic he experienced daily. He documented the subtle changes in the forest, the patterns of animal life, the bloom of rare flora, all with a newfound purpose, not just for academic pursuit, but to understand and honor the intricate world that was his beloved's home. As the years unfolded, Elias observed the seasons of devotion. Each spring, he felt a surge of renewed life, mirroring the vibrant energy that hummed through the forest. He would leave offerings of fresh spring flowers, carefully gathered from meadows near his cottage, tied with gentle strands of grass to the oak tree. Her replies would speak of the burgeoning life, the new growth, and the quiet joy of watching the forest awaken. Sometimes he would catch a fleeting glimpse of the golden fox, her fur gleaming brightly against the fresh green leaves, a silent acknowledgment of his spring offerings. Summer brought a deeper, more settled warmth to their connection. Long, languid days were filled with the hum of insects and the rustle of leaves, carrying her scented letters to him. He would often leave small bowls of fresh water by hidden streams, or offer meticulously polished river stones, cool to the touch. Her letters, in turn, spoke of the deep shade, the gentle heat, and the quiet vigilance required to protect the abundant life of the summer woods. He would sometimes spot her, sleek and golden, resting in a patch of dappled sunlight, her eyes half closed, a picture of serene contentment. Autumn, with its rich tapestry of colors, became a time of reflection and gentle melancholy. The scent of decaying leaves, of damp earth and wood smoke, mingled with the familiar petrichor in her letters. She wrote of the letting go, the graceful surrender of the trees, and the deep slumber that awaited the forest. Elias would leave offerings of ripe berries and nuts, acknowledging the bounty of the season. And sometimes he would simply sit near the oak tree, quietly communing with the silent trees, feeling her presence in the crisp air. The golden fox seemed to appear more frequently in autumn, sometimes observing him from a distance with a contemplative gaze, as if sharing in the quiet introspection of the season. Winter was perhaps the most profound season of their devotion. The forest would fall silent, blanketed in snow, its life seemingly withdrawn into the earth. Elias would tend his fire, his cottage a warm beacon against the cold. His letters to her during winter were often filled with his deepest thoughts, his quiet gratitude for her presence in his life, and his unwavering love. He would leave small, carefully wrapped bundles of dried herbs or smooth, dark pieces of coal, symbols of warmth and enduring spirit. Her replies, when they came, were often on parchments that felt cool to the touch, and spoke of the deep rest, the hidden life beneath the snow, and the patience of the earth as it waited for renewal. The golden fox, a magnificent silhouette against the white landscape, would sometimes leave delicate paw prints in the snow near his cottage, a silent, comforting sign that she was near, vigilant even in the deepest slumber of the forest. Through these changing seasons, their bond deepened, evolving into a quiet, unwavering devotion. Elias learned to anticipate her needs, to understand the subtle shifts in her moods reflected in her letters and her rare appearances. His life was no longer merely his own. It was intertwined with the ancient rhythms of the forest, guided by the silent, profound love for his foxwife. The simple act of leaving a letter or finding one waiting for him was a sacred ritual, a constant reaffirmation of their enduring connection across worlds, nurtured by the passage of time and the beauty of nature's endless cycle.
Through the seasons of devotion, Elias's world had undergone a profound transformation. The boundaries that once defined his scholarly life had softened, blurring at the edges, slowly dissolving into the vibrant, living tapestry of the forest. The rational mind, once the sole arbiter of his reality, now embraced the magic that hummed just beneath the surface of the visible world. He no longer questioned the impossible, he lived it. His days were still spent with books, but now they were often open to natural history, botany, and ancient folklore, seeking to understand the scientific and mythical underpinnings of the world his foxwife inhabited. He recognized patterns in the wind's whispers, felt the subtle vibrations of the earth, and saw more than just trees when he looked into the depths of the woods. He saw ancient spirits, timeless guardians, and the living breath of a world most people had long forgotten. The distinct scent of petrichor and wild musk, once a faint accompaniment to her letters, now seemed to permeate his cottage, a constant, comforting presence. He would often wake in the middle of the night, not to the rustle of turning pages, but to the feeling of cool forest air drifting through his open window, carrying with it a gentle warmth that he knew was her unspoken greeting. He sometimes heard the soft pad of paws on his porch, or a gentle scratch at the glass, and though he never saw her in her fox form so close to his dwelling in waking hours, he knew it was her, a silent visit from his beloved. His senses, once primarily visual and intellectual, had sharpened. He could distinguish the cries of different owls, identifying their moods from their calls. He could tell the health of a tree by the sheen of its leaves and the texture of its bark. He learned to read the sky, predicting rain by the subtle shift in air pressure and the color of the clouds. He understood the language of the birds, their alarm calls, their mating songs, their simple communications. The fading line between his human perception and her wild reality was becoming increasingly indistinct. His own body seemed to subtly change. He found he needed less sleep, his nights often filled with shared dreams that felt more vivid than waking life. His eyesight seemed to grow keener in the dim light of dawn and dusk. His movements became quieter, more fluid, almost echoing the silent grace of the fox. He ate more simply, favoring wild berries and mushrooms he gathered himself, and the clear, cold water from the forest streams. The harshness of city life, the clamor of human society, felt increasingly distant, like a faint echo from another lifetime. He still wrote his letters, perhaps even with more tenderness, pouring his heart onto the leaf parchment. He wrote of the beauty he witnessed daily, the small miracles of nature, and his boundless gratitude for her presence in his life. He confessed his wonder at the changes within himself, how he felt more alive, more connected to the world than ever before. He often ended his letters simply, with a direct address to her essence, "My beloved, my wild heart." And her replies, delivered on the wind, were less about the specifics of the forest and more about the profound connection that now existed between them.
They spoke of the merging of spirits, the dance of intertwined destinies, and the joy of shared existence across the perceived chasm of worlds. She wrote of how his presence had enriched her own ancient solitude, how his understanding was a rare gift. Elias knew deep in his soul that he was no longer merely a man living at the edge of the woods. He was part of it, irrevocably tied to its heart, bound by a love that transcended form and expectation. The fading line between human and wild, between scholar and spirit, had dissolved, leaving only the profound truth of their intertwined existence. He was becoming one with the whispers, the scents, and the very breath of the ancient forest, all because of his fox wife.
The fading line between Elias's human world and his fox wife's wild realm had, over the years, all but disappeared. He lived fully immersed in the subtle magic of the forest, his senses attuned to its every whisper. His quiet cottage, once a solitary haven, now felt like an extension of the woods, a place where the scent of petrichor was as natural as the scent of old books. He was no longer just Elias the scholar. He was a silent guardian of the forest, a man whose heart beat in rhythm with its ancient pulse. His correspondence with her, once a formal exchange of letters, had evolved into something more profound. The leaf parchments still arrived, carried by the wind or left in unexpected places, but their words were less about detailed observations and more about shared feelings, echoes of their intertwined souls. Her messages spoke of the profound peace she found in his understanding, and the enduring strength of their unconventional love. Elias, in turn, wrote simply of his unwavering devotion, his endless fascination, and the deep, quiet joy her presence, however elusive, brought to his every day. His final letters were often brief, distilled to their purest essence, like poetry whispered into the wind. Years passed, marked not by the turning pages of a calendar, but by the cycling of the seasons, each bringing its own unique beauty and affirmation of their bond. Elias grew older, his hair silvering, his movements slowing, but his eyes retained a youthful sparkle, reflecting the endless wonder he found in the world around him. He continued his walks into the deep woods, leaving his offerings of smooth stones and wildflowers, always listening for the rustle of leaves, hoping for a glimpse of golden red fur. He knew she was near, always, a vigilant presence, a silent companion. He rarely saw her in her human-like form after that first sunset revelation, understanding that such a shift was taxing for her, reserved for moments of profound significance. But the golden fox was a constant presence in his life, sometimes seen from a distance, sometimes a fleeting shadow, and occasionally she would allow herself to be seen clearly, her intelligent eyes meeting his across a sun-dappled clearing, a moment of profound, wordless communion that spoke volumes. In these moments, he felt her entire being, her love, her ancient wisdom, flowing into him. One particularly serene autumn, as the leaves turned to fiery hues of gold and crimson, Elias felt a gentle weariness settle deep into his bones. It was not a sadness, but a quiet completion,
a sense that his journey was nearing its peaceful conclusion. He walked to the old oak tree, his steps slower now, and retrieved his last leaf parchment from his satchel. His hand, though lined with age, was steady as he wrote, his words flowing with a profound peace. My dearest love, my wild heart, the sun sets on a life made rich by your presence. The whispers of the wind have become my lullaby, and the scent of earth my comfort. I have walked with you across worlds, and found in your ancient wisdom a truth more profound than any book could teach. My heart is full, my spirit at peace. I feel the wind calling me home, not to a dwelling, but to the very essence of the forest that holds us both. Our love, like the wind, is boundless, and like the ancient trees, it will stand through all seasons. He signed it simply, yours, forever entwined. He tied the letter to the lowest branch of the oak, where it fluttered gently, waiting for her. Then he found a comfortable spot at the base of the tree, leaning against its vast trunk, listening to the rustle of the falling leaves, feeling the cool breath of the autumn air on his face. He closed his eyes, inhaling deeply, drawing in the familiar, comforting scent of petrichor, sensing her presence around him, closer than ever. He saw the moonlit glade in his mind, felt the dance of the fireflies, and knew he would meet her there again in a realm beyond form. His breath grew shallow, then softer, until it was barely perceptible, a gentle fading into the quiet of the forest. The eternal echoes of their love, carried on the wind, would forever resonate through the ancient woods. The moon now hangs high, a silver lantern suspended above the quiet forest. The wind sighs through the ancient trees, a soft, hushed melody that carries with it the gentle scent of damp earth and the lingering perfume of wildflowers. The air grows cool, wrapping around you like a soft, warm blanket, pulling you deeper into its embrace. Listen closely to the quiet breathing of the night, to the distant hoot of an owl, a comforting sound in the vast stillness. Let every thought drift away, like leaves falling silently to the forest floor, until your mind is as still and peaceful as the moonlit glade. Feel the warmth of your covers, the soft pillow beneath your head, and let your own breath deepen, slowing to a gentle, steady rhythm. The world outside is quiet now, dreaming its own ancient dreams. You are safe, you are warm, and you are not alone in the dark. Drift like a feather on the softest breeze into the peaceful depths of slumber, carried by the echoes of a love that transcends all boundaries, forever entwined with the whispers of the wind and the timeless heart of the forest. End of script. Good night.